Hey everybody, this is Bart Sharp, and you are on Becoming Quantum Conscious at United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network, broadcasting out of the beautiful city of New Orleans, Louisiana, at 107.7 and 105.3 FM. And wow, sure is great to be here today and in beautiful Austin, Texas. Of course, in a couple of weeks, I'll be in France and we'll be doing the France thing, which means more Mary Magdalene, more sacred site stuff, all of what the French and the English and the Europeans are thinking about today in their own spiritual journey. I think they have a gravitation to all of that. But today, we are still in Austin and we are interviewing Austinites, and one today is Rachel Pierce of yomaom.com. And welcome to the show, Rachel.
Thank you, Bart. It's good to be here.
Yeah, Rachel is a Kundalini, what would you call it?
Practitioner.
Practitioner?
Or instructor.
Yeah, and it's quite a journey to take. So we're just going to talk about Kundalini today and really how it's done. I always think of it as kind of this mysterious, invisible force that's within everybody. And how the heck do you ever get it to unlock it, and what it feels like, and where it goes, and where you could be going with it? All those questions.
Good questions to ask, because you're right. It is within everyone, and it is essentially your life force energy, and across multiple different esoteric religions and explorations on that. What am I trying to say? It's called your chi, your prana, your life force energy. All depending on which tradition you want to follow, it's all essentially the same thing. It is your life force energy that stays relatively tucked in your lower chakras, your root and your sacral, and it can release in a multitude of ways through sexual activity, through movement and breath work, and it can also release sporadically on its own, which is what it initially did for me.
You're ready to wake up. What happened?
Yes.
Wow, that feels good.
It was an interesting sensation. It was it was an intense sexual arousal that I was not expecting. That's what it felt like for me. And this is before I had any idea of what Kundalini was. So I had no idea what was going on. And it can be experienced in a multitude of ways, from tingling sensations to sexual arousal.
So I'm just curious about this. What were there anything that you were doing that was accidentally preparing you for this? Like,
in my case, it was it was stress and life trauma.
wow.
Yeah, stressful situations can actually release this energy into your life, and I think it is essentially your body gearing up for the shift. But yes, I went through a time where I lost my job, I lost my husband, I lost my home, I lost my pet, all within a 2-month period.
Ouch.
And going through situations like that can very much unlock that energy within yourself.
Almost as if your life force was kind of saving you or giving you an energy so you would be able to meet all of these demands of these 4 different crises.
You can put it that way. I think it was preparing me for the next leg of my journey.
You're an optimist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's a good thing. I mean, for every crisis and every danger we have, there's an opportunity.
Yes, yes. And so it's one of those things, like I said, I didn't know what was happening at the time, but looking back, I'm like, oh, that makes total sense because all of a sudden my life completely opened up to the world of yoga and Kundalini yoga, and yogic philosophy, as well as tarot and astrology and all these very occult practices that I really had no idea. I mean, I knew that they existed, but
Hmm.
I hadn't explored them at all. It was very life changing.
Wow. Kind of like putting yourself on the launching pad and taking off without a lot of warning or even having a goal, because so many people go, well, I want to have that life force spring up into me, and they think about, well, it's going to be sexual, it's going to be fulfilling, I'm going to feel maybe joy, which my definition of joy would be that everything feels whole and complete in your life.
Mm.
And it's generally a temporary state of being. We may have it for a day or a period of days, maybe weeks, but then we kind of go back to normal and mundane, and we're not in that peak experience anymore.
Hmm.
But everybody is seeking it.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's the part. It's natural for us to want to have joy and to want to have that sense of wholeness and completeness in our lives.
Mhm.
It is transitional, and you have to be open to the signs at which you're ready to move on or explore other things. But yeah, and I do think it's important um, to remember that these experiences, these openings, can go in a multitude of avenues, some seemingly positive and some a little bit more challenging. And so, um, doing the proper clearing work and really doing what you can to prepare if you are trying to spur it on
Mhm.
is very important, which I experienced that as well.
Did you feel like all of a sudden you were blessed with well, after you got this big sexual energy coming into you, and it's like, it's really cool. Uh, I was practicing for that. I had an intention. I was doing energetic activations, so I knew what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
But for you, it was unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
But once you started figuring it out, did you start to feel like you had a superpower alive in you?
So that came a couple years later. The way it worked for me was in 2018. I went through some uh, life shifts,
Hmm.
and slowly, my life personally started getting really exciting because I was exploring all these things. But I didn't feel any of the supernatural powers or experiences at that time.
Hmm.
It was 2 years later, during the time of 2020, that I started experiencing these incredible transcendental experiences, very paranormal, having psychic visions, feeling the energies of beings around me, being able to feel the energy of crystals, um, hearing, having channeled messages, and that was all happening spontaneous. That was almost like the next level of my education because once again, I didn't know that any of that really existed either. It was one of those things you kind of hear about in the movies, but I
Yep.
was like, oh yeah, sure. And then all of
Yeah.
a sudden, it's happening to me without me asking for it at all. So that was what I call phase two.
Wow, like Steven Spielberg, call me up. I got something happening here.
it was
We got a movie.
it was really interesting. It was, yeah, it was a very interesting time in my life.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was an interesting time I call it the Great Quiet of 2020, because everybody was home and thus everybody was quiet. And in the collective consciousness, that contributed to everybody advancing.
Hmm.
That's how I see it. And so we made this springboard of consciousness begin to happen. And I was muscle testing and evaluating it from that away. What was the collective consciousness going on a number scale. And I was using the Power versus Force by, oh gosh, what's his name? Can't think of his name. Power versus Force, great book. He has a conscious scale of 1 to 100, and he has a very numerical um, evaluation of what the collective consciousness is for the planet. And at that time, it was around 210. It had sprung from 195 in before 2000, but 2020 it jumped from 110 to like 120, or no, 220, and that was a big awakening. And it just sounds like you were just affected.
I was very affected. It was intense. It was really, and it was fun. It was really fun. But I, at the same time, I'm in my house by myself, relatively by myself. My partner was with me at the time, but he did not agree with. He thought I was crazy. He didn't believe what was happening to me at all, and so it was an interesting time, sitting in my room and just having all these crazy paranormal things happen with, I'm just sitting there. I'm not even asking for it.
But you're meditating and you're connecting.
I wasn't even really, no. There was a couple of things, like I didn't even know what breath work was.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember sitting on the couch one time and watching a documentary that had Lourdes, the fountain.
Right.
And I just got this sensation, this urge to start breathing that into my heart. And so I did, and all of a sudden I'm breathing harder and harder and harder and harder, and all of a sudden I just get blown back on the couch, and I have this vision, which I don't have. It's black whenever I close my eyes, and I just got this vision of this person in a meditative state with all the psychedelic colors, and then I could feel like hands all over me, touching me, and I literally got pushed back into the couch. It was, yeah. So that's what I mean is I really was not asking or cognitively bringing this on. It was just these sensations that I would have, or these kind of urges that, to do something, and I would do it, and then it would create this experience.
Wow. That's an amazing story.
That year was chock full of them. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think every time something like that happens to you, it's an initiation into another higher level of being. That happens. It's kind of like a Passover. I had a similar one that I had was I've been doing tons of shadow work and doing my shamanistic. I was basically using the tools that I kind of bumped into. Started using them to clear my shadow issues, and I did it for, 6 months. I was very obsessed. And one day, meditating, kind of walking between the worlds, partially dreaming, partially awake, and I get this vision of this big sky, and there were 13 white stars and 13 black stars, and I'm watching them, and they start moving, and all of a sudden they flew into my body. And it was initiation. And I immediately felt like I was in ecstasy for a couple of days. It was floaty. It was beautiful. And it changed my life. And something like what Lourdes is doing with you.
Yeah, it was a very floaty experience. Yeah, I was extremely floaty that year. And it must have, I'm not going to claim initiation, but there was definitely just a slew of experiences that I wasn't expecting, and it was really really quite beautiful.
Even as you talk about it, your heart and your chest area feel much lighter, almost as if you're back into that Mother Mary realm.
That state.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
And if you're on the show or you're listening somewhere, you might just pay attention to your heart right now and see if something is getting triggered, because transference happens. It's something, maybe you're ready for something very similar to happen.
Mm.
And she is a conduit for you right now. It's nice to be a troublemaker.
That's good trouble.
Good trouble.
That's good trouble. I'm down with some good trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. So it awakens up in a lot of different ways. And to me, Kundalini, as I always see it, as kind of like this energy in that first and second chakra area. Some people say, well, it's in the spine. Some people say, well, no, it comes up through the perineum. I say it's kind of both. But it's this, they say it like a snake is wrapped around there. And the snake is, of course, symbolic of this life force of what Earth is and our connection with the Earth, greater cosmos, even beyond the Earth. And it's just locked in there. It's not locked, but it's just there. And we're trying to awaken it.
Yeah, it's lying dormant. Everyone has it. To my understanding, it's something we all have, but it's lying dormant and waiting to be released. And it can be released in, like I said, a multitude of ways. And it's, in my experience, it is, because I was up until that point rather unhappy. I didn't realize that I was unhappy because I had been so unhappy for so long. Um, and then when that happened, it just rolled out the red carpet towards my personal path. And I've just been so incredibly grateful for everything that it brought to me. They say, follow the synchronicities that happen once this unlocks in yourself. And in doing so, I have been led to so much fulfillment. And that is something, like I said, for someone who really didn't even know what this was, I could not be more grateful.
So is it kind of like a source of, I don't want to say assurance or power, but this source inside of you that now you're connected to it gives you strength to endure or, be in any situation? Like you have something internal that helps you deal with whatever you're confronted with.
That's an interesting perspective. And I really can't say either way on that. I can definitely say that you can, once it's released, it does seem to, speaking for myself, I can tap back into it with ease, with a lot of ease. And it does have a very dreamy and calming effect. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It does. We were just talking about it earlier as we were kind of preparing for the show. And, I used to go to these internet entrepreneur gatherings, where one person would speak and there would be everybody around at this bar, and we'd listen to them and drink beer and just try to get little tidbits of information from these self-made millionaires. They mostly were kind of grandiose and told all of these stories that were like them bragging, basically. But they gave us some information. But what I came for was to see what they felt like. What does a millionaire feel like? And their Kundalini was always super strong. Their second chakra was power. And these weren't spiritual people.
Right. Everybody has it. And
Yeah.
it's just, how is it being utilized? And to your point, it's a creative energy. So
Yeah.
it can be used to create money. Your second chakra is your chakra of prosperity, money, and creativity. So
Yeah.
it's how are you using it? To this point, even just yesterday, I went to a breathwork class, and we were guided to bring that energy up to our third eye and our crown. And I was able to get visions again and feel a greater strength and confidence in my life mission. So it really can be. It's not. We use the term sexual, and that does not just mean the act of sex. It's all the things in which you can create.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the whole impetus of what sex is, it's all about creation. You know, when you think, well, you make babies, yeah, that's kind of obvious. But just the union of two people together creates an energy that births so many things if they're aware and conscious of it. You know, most of the realities, they're more about tension and release, like that type of sex, and it has lots of anger and violence and tension and you know, and they kind of explode and then they go, oh, we feel so much better. That's love. But the Kundalini is something different. It's about expansion. I
Hmm.
mean, how many great ideas and great consciousness experiences have you had since you've been doing this journey with this?
Oh, especially this last year. A lot. A lot. I think when I first found the actual act of Kundalini yoga, it was more to kind of prep me and prime me and get some emotional residue out of my system.
Mm-hmm.
And then now it is, um, you get the downloads, or you get just like those cogs, those wheels in your head turn with a greater intensity, um, to where all of a sudden you just feel very much connected to your creativity. And of course, creativity can be manifested in so many different ways. We often
Yeah.
think it's just creating art, but it's actually can unfold in a multitude of ways.
Just like this conversation we're having, we prepared some, but I have no idea what the second half of the show is going to be like. However, something creative is going to happen. Uh, and to me, it's about intention, intensity, and fun.
Hmm.
You know, those three things.
Hmm.
This is like, yeah, we're going to have some fun today.
Let's do it. We're having fun right now.
Yeah, yeah. It's all in those processes with that. But there's also, you know, how do you manage your chi? How do you manage this area down here now as your kind of one of your, because it's a precious part for you,
Hmm.
you know?
Very, very much.
And how do you, I don't want to say maintain it, but exercise it? Yeah, that's a good
Well, in a multitude of ways, really keeping myself healthy and utilizing hatha yoga, vinyasa yoga, keeping myself physically in tune, and then meditation as well. Focusing on the different chakras whenever I'm meditating, and as well as the auric field. Um, I would say that those, yeah, keeping myself physically healthy has been.
So it's kind of natural. But you're also, you know, when I think of yoga and stuff, I think of flexibility, but also like a strengthening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How does that work for you? I mean, what's that process for you just doing that? Because I've never done that way, uh, yoga to increase my Kundalini.
Ah, well, I have a specific way where because the Kundalini rises up from your lower region to your crown, so I always work, or I shouldn't say always, but I tend to work from root to crown in my
Mm-hmm.
practice,
Mm-hmm.
and that will um, bring the energy up. And I also focus on opening up the meridian lines with specific movements, once again, in that specific order. And so it's because I will admit, the Kundalini awakening can be a very powerful experience. And if you're not totally ready, it can almost knock you on your ass. Excuse my French. And so this, I have been working on a more gentle approach to opening up those pathways, so that it's not quite so overwhelming. Because we think it's so much fun to just blow your chakras open all at one time, and it can be, but there's also that shadow side of it, and so it's really good to do the priming work.
So what's the shadow side of it?
Well, I've been through now the two different dualities or natures of a Kundalini awakening. One was very light and love, very rosy and wonderful, but I had not and did not even know about shadow work. And so this second round was very dark, emotionally intense. And I had to do a lot of shadow work. I had to face a lot of my demons.
So a lot of your repressed anger and repressed emotions were coming out as you were living your everyday life. In other words, things that you were confronted with seemed to have, that would elicit a negative emotion, like getting angry about something. All of a sudden, they were much more angry.
It was fury. It was. And then there was also, there's not just the emotional aspect. My physical body almost deteriorated. I've gotten down to under 100 pounds. I was excreting all different kinds of fluids and smells, and I had skin rashes. My hair was just a wreck and falling out. I couldn't sleep. I was having night sweats. I was incredibly sensitive to my environment, and I could not be around loud noises, a lot of crowds, a lot of movement, violence on TV. It was extreme. It was intense.
So you had this excretion process happening in amazing ways, and part of that is you had this Kundalini that is alive and vibrant and really feeling like a higher power is alive in you, is how I feel it in different ways.
Yeah, and I think it was actively trying to push all the mud out of my system so that I could purify.
Wow.
And be, let's say a cleaner vessel for the life force, for the energy.
Wow. Well, it happens in so many different ways.
It does.
And it's always intriguing to see how people are doing this. I wanted to let everybody know that you are listening to Rachel Pierce, who is of www.yomaom.
Yomaom. So YOMAOM.com.
That's right. Yeah, YOMAOM.com. And you can catch her at Rachel at yomaom.com. God, but we've been talking so much, I haven't even put on the banner. What am I not thinking? It's just been so much fun doing this show with you. I forget all the essential things that should have been done 25 minutes ago. And also, if anybody wants to join in the chat and say hi to Rachel or have a question, we'll just happy to field any of that. Also, my name is Bart Sharp, and you are on Becoming Quantum Conscious at United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 107.7 and 105.3. Also, you can find us on Roku, YouTube, Facebook, and other internet platforms all around the world. They'll tell them where people are that are listening to us, and also catch us recorded shows and stuff. And also, most importantly, you can catch us on www.uprntalkradio.com. That's the headwater station uh, out of New Orleans with all of that stuff. And Rachel, when you talk about this Kundalini, it's always got this, or yoga. To me, it's like when I'm doing yoga and doing stretches and stuff, I'm just trying to keep my position. And but you must get to this point where that's easy. And then in that ease, then it starts to happen.
That is absolutely correct. I, yeah, I mean, it takes practice. It takes practice, and commitment sounds like such a strong word, but that was one of the things that the awakening, the initial phases of the awakening led me to was a very regular, daily yogic practice. And as you work that in, you're able to hold the poses, and therefore your meridian lines are staying open and clear. You're clearing out energetic debris, and you're also able to then hold the pose with ease, and then you're able to kind of get out of your mind and into your body with it, rather than sitting there and just thinking, oh my god, this sucks. And so it increases the ability to have a more meditative experience through your practice. So that's why it's great if you I'm not knocking going to just a random yoga class here and there, but I can speak from my own experience that when you are willing to put that hour in daily, what you can achieve in the long run is phenomenal. And when I even say long run, I think it only took me about 6 months to a year to really gain a pretty proficient practice.
Yeah.
And there's multiple different means of yoga. So doing the hatha yoga and or vinyasa yoga is going to give you that strength and flexibility that you can then use during the Kundalini practices, which are a bit more geared towards having a more transcendental experience. And you're able to have not only the stamina, but stamina physically, but also cardiovascularly, for what you are going to be asked to do in those Kundalini regimens.
Wow, that sounds yummy.
It is yummy. It is.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's just good for your mind, body, and soul.
It is. My path was very different. I laid on the couch and did energetic activations.
Ah, so it was very meditative.
It was very meditative, and I did not get in the sitting position where your legs are crossed and your hands are like this. Mine was like lay on the couch and activate these energies, and then allow them to guide and the awakenings happen. And I think the point being is there's a lot of ways to do it.
There absolutely is.
I mean, yours was by almost like your body was saying, it's time for you to wake up.
Oh, yeah.
All the crap that you were dealing with, you're going to rise above it, and something alive and bountiful is going to
come of this. Yeah, you're meant for more. You're meant for more is what it was. Absolutely. And it is really, to your point, it's really fascinating all the different ways in which this can unfold. I'm a body person, so I love the 2-for-1 effect that you get of being able to have the Kundalini awakening and it be good for your physical health. So as we age, it's important, or any time in our life, that's important. But it's interesting to hear that you were able to spur it on just with meditative presence.
Yeah, and pulling energy from the earth and doing it totally energetic, sitting by a tree and feeling almost like the chi of the tree, and having that come up inside of me, and having that happen with that. Yoga has never been something I've done a lot of. Though as a dancer, of course, we do yoga, but it's not exactly the same. We're just learning to stretch. Whereas you guys are activating and bringing in all of these energies beyond the body to help that happen.
And that's why it's so beautiful that there's different ways to go about it. As most well, I shouldn't say most, a lot of Americans in my age group have ADD. And so being able to have that movement, that's actually what the asana, which is the movement practice, was
Hang on with
created for.
that. ADD is attention deficit disorder, by the way, everybody.
And so my mind races a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to dispel that energy through physical movement allows me to then sit and meditate.
Wow.
Whereas I was not able to do that before. So just sitting and doing it from your approach wouldn't have been effective for me. I needed that. I needed to get the energy out of my body. So that's why it's so great that there's different ways for everybody.
Yeah, that's wonderful because everybody is working at getting that mind to be quieter.
Mm.
And it sounds like as you're almost like creating a map with your body when you do yoga, and that you feel the energy align with your muscles and your bones, but then you go into the meridians, and then it probably gets more and more complex, and therefore you're opening all the pathways of energy flow.
Absolutely. Because each meridian and chakra are attuned to different energies and different organs, and the different organs and body tissues hold on to different emotions, and emotion is just energy,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so you can utilize that energy in an effective way. And it's really beautiful. When if people want to work with me, you can come to my website and you can tell me what it is that you are wanting to achieve, what goal you're looking to, and I can structure that session to accommodate those needs. It may be for emotional release, it may be for a transcendental experience. We can do different things.
So you're beginning with troubleshooting about, well, this is where I'm at, like as a client, and then you're able to assess and go into offering strategies, suggestions, your energetic being, which, you think, well, I'm doing this intellectually with this person through a consultation, but actually it's energetic. Like your energetic being transfers into that consultation, that experience, and opens them because that's who you are.
Well, my goal really is to get people in touch with their own energetic being.
Of course, but you're a conduit.
Mm.
I mean, if you go through all what you've gone through, you are a conduit, and that transfers to everybody you interview or you talk to, and that's why it's good to get with powerhouses to help you kind of cross over to next levels.
Mm.
And they almost like push you. I mean, if you went and hung out with the Dalai Lama and had tea with the guy, you would probably walk out a better person, even though you might have been just talking about football or something. However, that transference would have happened.
I will. There is definitely a lot of truth to what you're saying in the energetic absorption that you can receive through exchange. Um, yeah, it is. I I found myself incredibly sensitive, more and more sensitive as I have been implementing these practices.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, it works if you work it.
Exactly. And when you work with other people, you go into their world, and that's the beauty of it doing this work is that you get the practitioner gets the expansion along with the client together. It is a win-win for everybody that way. That to me is kind of a generosity of spirit that we can always give and receive in these different ways, and it grows.
Mm.
You don't know how it's going to grow, but it'll grow. So, what's fascinating you now in your development?
Ah, I am so excited because I feel, let me backtrack just a little bit. So, part of a Kundalini awakening, just to clarify, is to find your life purpose. And so, you will have this awakening experience, and then synchronicities will start unfolding in your life. And as you follow them, it's almost like this little yellow brick road And lately, everything that I have learned, and as you go down this yellow brick road, you're picking up little bits, tidbits here and there, and putting them in your pocket. And now I found tantric arts and uh, healing sexual trauma uh, through the tantric arts, and I am really excited to start exploring that and um, and and creating more offerings for the public in the future, because that form of I don't want to say religious practice, but spiritual approach is quite clearly holding every synchronistic finding that I have found, that I have gathered along
Yep.
this road. And I am just so excited.
That's wonderful. You know, when I think about the stuff like the Me Too movement, and all of these people have had, and it would be male and female, where they're damaged in their sexuality, they're confronted of it, where they find demeaning spirits, or they're just abused or shamed, and it's held down in our first and second chakra as a repressed memory. And so when you're doing this sexual healing work, it's not about having sex, but it's about going in to the repressed parts. And just to kind of clarify that.
Absolutely.
That, I mean, I would imagine there's somebody in the world that does it on a physical level, but that's not what we're talking about. We are talking about just a emotional, intellectual, energetic interaction.
Absolutely. To your point, though, sex magic is a very real thing.
It is.
And it's also very interesting. And so my emphasis, and it's growing in its popularity, shall we say?
This is between two consenting adults that are willing to be in this spiritual relationship. And the most important ingredient that makes this happen in the most profound ways is love for each other.
Absolutely. And that is one of the things that, well, I've just experienced that is part of my calling. That is part of what I am, just as Mary Magdalene was um, uh, considered a sacred whore. And so that is very much part of my calling. But I also learned that if you are participating in these activities before you're cleansing out yourself, both physically, mentally, and emotionally, you might not have the wonderful experience that you're looking for. So doing the priming work is highly recommended.
And the concept of the sacred whore, that's kind of a hot concept in my circles. It's talked about a lot. And this isn't about sexual interaction. It's about somebody that goes deep inside of their own self, to where they know not only their sexuality, their first and second chakras, but their whole embodiment, to where they're a master. And so they're serving people to get to their most core issues. And for so many people, it's right between the hips, and that's where they're storing it. That's where they're stuck. That's where they're holding the anger and shame and sadness and other things. And, you're kind of like a guide to help people transit through those waters.
To hold that space, to your point, I continue to come across more and more people that are sharing their stories with me. That we typically keep this kind of stuff on the low. Throughout centuries, we don't talk about sex at all, but certainly not the shallower aspects of abuse. And those types of things. But the more I talk to people, the more I'm realizing, oh, this is a real thing that so many of us have experienced. and don't necessarily know all the ways to process, and or may not, there's a way for everyone. And so some of the more therapy based, traditional Western medicine based might only take you so far.
Yep.
And you might feel it necessary to implement some other practices to just kind of take you to that full circle, which was what
Yeah.
happened for me. I went to, without using all of the tools. Um, I should say, using all of the tools is what has helped me really whole out and even out my healing process.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like the great story you told about just all the excretions happening while
Mm.
the Kundalini was awakening. But there must have been some sort of core emotion that was in you that needed to be recognized and dealt with and come to resolution with peace. It's not like something like that in your shadow ever totally goes away, but you come to a familiarity
Mm.
that you have, very little reaction to it.
You can dull the edge, yes. And for me, it was shame, uh, shame, anger, and a feeling of unworthiness. So it was the lower three
Yeah.
chakras, and that's the thing. We often want to get to this, the upper three chakras because it feels good, it feels amazing. Oh my god! But if you haven't really worked through those lower three, they're just waiting, laying in wait. Or they can't. They can be, and you don't
Laying in wait.
necessarily know when that tiger is going to strike. So it's yeah, seriously. So yeah, and for me, and once again, I just didn't know any of this stuff existed, and so it really caught me off guard. So if I can help people navigate these waters with a little bit
Yeah,
more ease, because it's a and it can be a challenging journey when you're trying to do it by yourself.
indeed. And it almost sounds like there's a real karmic thing here that, Rachel Pierce, the ordinary woman, ordinary child, different things happening. There was something in your karma that at a certain point, maybe you made the right, I don't say, you made the turn that took you down that road you didn't exactly know you're going to take. But at some point, a greater part of you awakened,
Mm.
almost like a karmic part of you awakened that says, okay, Rachel, you've done enough stuff that we're going to take you down this alleyway.
Right.
You didn't have a special friend, somebody, a special teacher. It just was you.
Absolutely. It was not in my hands. It was not anything that I suck out. It was gifted to me.
I think that's a really, if you're really curious about your own life, you may just start asking these questions. It's like, how am I ready to wake up to the next big thing?
Hmm.
And be in that curiosity about what that is in your own life.
Yes, and I think, a good question to ask is, am I really doing what I want? Am I
Mm,
really happy? Am I really doing what I want? And that doesn't mean, if you get a no when you ask that question, that you just uproot your entire life. Allow it to unravel slowly. But it's looking back, I
mhm.
realized that I was not being true to myself. I wasn't being me. I was being what society told me to be. I was being what my parents told me to be. I was being what my friends thought I should be. And I wasn't being true to myself. And this unleashed in me to where I literally could not refuse doing what was me, serving me.
Yes. And that all seems to have a lot of connection with shame
Mm.
as an emotion. That would be common for somebody with shame as a underlying energy. Shame is, to me, shame, when you look at it on the scale of all the emotions and the power, it's at the lowest. It's at the bottom rung. But why it's such a delicious and important emotion that if you ever start to resolve shame, you spring to the highest of highs in the highest forms of creativity.
Mm.
And it's just like, it just brings up that question, you know, what do you think you're going to be cooking next?
Well, it's interesting that you say that because that was my experience yesterday in my breathwork class. Yes, you're absolutely correct. The chakras align with one another. So you have your sacral chakra, which is your second chakra. Well, that is in alignment with your third eye, which is considered, another creative center. And so what I had happen to me yesterday was we brought that sacral energy up, that creative energy up, and I'm sitting there and I'm saying, you know what? Yes, I do want to help people empower themselves through sexuality. I
Mm-hmm.
want to help women empower themselves through the ownership of their sexuality. And I don't care who's going to judge me. I don't care if my parents don't understand or if because there was a lot of shame and
Mm-hmm.
fear involved in that. So, absolutely.
And more like your parents' voice that you've grown up with, not the actual parents.
Yes, because when I really think about it, I'm like, they are not going to care. They're actually going to think it's a beautiful thing
Yeah,
to offer the world.
you're definitely a grown woman.
So, yeah. So to your point, absolutely, I can speak to personal experience on that note.
That's wonderful. So tell us about what you got going on now. What's with Yo Mo Mamo?
Yoma Yomam. And I also noticed, I think that there's an extra A. So in my email, and I just want to clarify, it's RACHEL at yomaom.com, just
Yeah,
in case my
RACHEL.
EL.
Yes.
What do I have cooking? Well, I have got my transcendental yogic experiences, Kundalini, as well as Yin with some self massage. I especially recommend grouping the transcendental with the Yin afterwards to really ground out the energy if you're able to do that. And then I am I'm doing a lot of study of Tantra, and I'm really excited to start working with a mentor and really help bring into the world the inner child work and breath work and whatnot that really helped me ground and get through some of the more challenging aspects of this process in a way that is um, approachable and practical for everyone, um, despite any language barrier or.
Right, right. So Rachel's very available for you, particularly if you want consultations. That's a worldwide thing that you can connect and learn what she knows, and also have her assessments and guidance, at sessions. And it's all wonderful. And we're coming to the end of the show. So
What?
what? Yeah, I know. It's been so much fun. Parting wisdoms. As you think about a parting wisdom or a parting message that you'd like to share with everybody, I would like to tell everybody that you are on Becoming Quantum Conscious. And my name is Bart Sharp, and you are on United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 107.7 and 103.5 out of New Orleans, Louisiana. And you have been listening to Rachel Pierce at www.yomomom.com. And that would be finding her at Rachel Pierce. No, Rachel at yomom.com. And that's YOMAOM. It's like yo and ma and om.
Stands for yoga, massage, and om. So meditation, mindfulness.
Yeah, it's sweet.
Thank you.
makes you, it's very settling, like I'm in my mama's arms or something.
Oh,
Oh, I love it. So, um, I think that's all with the parting call letters. So, what words of wisdom do you have for us?
be true to yourself and allow that truth to transform with you. Because what's true to you 10 years ago may not be true to you 10 years from now. But nonetheless, be true to yourself.
Good wisdom. Well, thank you, everybody. Also, next week we will have Robin Shepherd, and we will be going into spiritualism. And how did she place it? I love this title. The fun of being dead. Like, the other side, how much fun it will be on the other side. And we're going to go into that reality about that exploration. I think it'll be fun. We'll see y'all next week. Bye bye, everybody.